Good afternoon and welcome to the Thursday, October 21st, 2021 meeting of the Transportation Advisory Committee. The Sunshine Coast Regional District is on the territories of the Sechelt and Squamish First Nations. We have an agenda before us, and are there any additions, changes, deletions? Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Yay, we have an agenda. Next, I would look for a motion to receive all reports and communications. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Good. All righty. First up is Nick Westwick. Take the floor, Nick.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to present to you all. Got about 7 or 8 slides, and recognizing that it's late in the day, I'll be as brief and succinct as I can be. I'll start by just sharing my screen and go through my slide deck here. And basically, the hope is to talk to you all about active travel on the Sunshine Coast, update you all a little bit in terms of what's happening out there, and then there's an ask, because of course there is. So really, there's lots that's been happening out there. The school district is doing some work, and I think good work around active travel. We've been doing a lot of advocacy work. We've also been piloting some active travel projects around the district, including some mapping, so some sort of safest and best routes to school maps at a few of our sites, and advocating for grants and for other supports for infrastructure improvements, and have been really well met and well organized, frankly, by the Vancouver Coastal Health Healthy Communities team. I will acknowledge that these slides, I had hoped that Leanne from Vancouver Coastal Health could join me here today, but these are mostly her slides that I've plagiarized, but I'll share them with you anyways. I think it's good information to have. Some of it will be familiar to you, as you saw a presentation at the intergovernmental meeting a couple of years ago now, I guess. So basically, one of the concerns that we have is that active transportation is gets a D- on the Canadian Physical Activity Report Card. So, only the data shows that only 21% of 5 to 19-year-olds typically use active modes of transportation. That's problematic for a variety of reasons. I think, on its surface, our culture has shifted towards more reliance on being driven to and fro, and that's led to sort of increasing social and emotional vulnerabilities. I think, and weak motor skills. I mean, I think there are mental health and physical health challenges that we see both for youth and for adults. And so really we want to anticipate, what's causing these symptoms, and what structures and processes can we put in place to help support active travel for kids and for youth. So we're working on that ourselves. We're revising our own transportation policies, our transportation regulations, and as I've mentioned, we're working on our own projects internally. And there's only so much we can do as the school board, and that's where we also need to rely on you folks and your staff to support this kind of work in any way that they can. Really exciting also to mention that we're able to participate in a pilot project through Hub Cycling, I think, in the city. They're going to be sending folks over to do some training, so bicycle safety training for kids here on the Sunshine Coast this year. So that's pretty awesome. So the sort of the background of the structure, the active travel initiative that's being led by Vancouver Coastal Health on the coast was based on a project at Gibson's Elementary in 2018 rather. where there was a study that was done to say, what's currently been done, what barriers are there. The tactical strategy group that I mentioned through VCH, basically the goal there is to bring staff together to make sure that we're communicating and collaborating when we're looking at, for such things as like subdivision approvals and so on, making sure that there's that active travel is a consideration. And the key concepts obviously are active travel, independent mobility, and active play. So the purpose of that group is to build a common understanding, look at an ideal state for what the Sunshine Coast could look like, enable shifts and create connections. And this is the membership of that group. So we have good representation from up and down the coast, from other organizations, and now from the SCRD, which is great. RAF has started participating in that, which is fantastic. And as I mentioned, one of the barriers that is out there is infrastructure. And so the ask is that the SCRD consider infrastructure improvements and gain some insight, hopefully, in terms of how the regional district, not sort of being basically how Modi can apply for funding from itself to upgrade its infrastructure for active travel, or whether the SCRD can do that on behalf of Modi, given that Modi has jurisdiction over highways and rural roads. So the goal is or the hope, the ask is that you consider applying for some of these infrastructure grants where it's possible, and where it isn't possible, consider advocating or finding out what structure might be possible or might facilitate some infrastructure improvements within Modi jurisdiction. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead a slide. So how can the SCRD TAC help? Obviously building awareness, participating in grant applications, considering children as key users. So when you're engaging in mapping and other projects, considering to and from school as an aspect of that, and consider advocating for a funding stream to help initiatives for active travel for kids and youth. And an example there would be the Surrey example, where the city actually funds school training or bicycle safety training for the local school district, or to happen at least in the local school district. So those types of things for your consideration. And again, I hope I've kept it brief enough, and happy to answer any questions you might have. And again, thank you for the opportunity to meet and present with you today. Before I turn over the floor, I wonder if Sue, my trustee here, wanted to add anything to this presentation that I might have forgotten.
Thanks, Nick. I don't really know. I think that's a great presentation, and I'm happy to see it. And again, because we've obviously seen it before. And my comment really is that when it comes to the infrastructure and the success of this campaign in improving active travel amongst our students and young people, first and foremost is safe routes. And so we have to begin by looking at all of those improvements. And this is the Transportation Committee, so it's a good opportunity to bring that up, that in order to get more kids out there bicycling, walking, scootering, we need road safety. And so we're always advocating for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you both. Good presentation, great slides. Since I'm in the chair, I'm going to editorialize a little bit. As you know, in the rural areas of the regional district, Modi is in charge of all our roads and road right-of-ways, and we finally signed a memorandum of understanding about building active transportation infrastructure on road right-of-ways, but we haven't yet worked out the process for how that's going to happen. I think that's a fair statement of where we are at the moment. And that process would have to include things like identifying priorities and identifying some high-value, low-cost improvements that could be done fairly quickly. The rural areas do have at least some funding that's in place, but the question is, how do we actually leverage it over here? So that said, first up, I believe, just a minute, let me check my list here, is Darnelda.
Thank you. I know that our planner Marina is on that active travel group. I mean, you had her name on there as well, and I know she interacts with that. I guess what I don't know is, at that table, do you guys actually talk about the actual routes? So, I mean, we don't know where the students are who live around the schools and have to get to school, right? We don't have that information. You guys do. But do you guys then talk about, okay, we need this route built, or we need this path done so that we can actually have bike and walking trails for the children to use? Because I don't know if that information's coming to us during our budget process. Now, we're into budget. We have met with all of the community associations. We have not met with the school district, as far as I know, to get that input. But that's critical for us to be able to actually budget for those, to have them happen. So how is that information flowing through, or do we need to set up a mechanism to make that happen?
Yeah, great. Over to Nick.
Yeah, I think that this committee has been a great asset in terms of developing those connections. I have been in contact with Marina about a couple of different concerns we have around safe routes to school rather, and you know, where feasible and where it makes sense. I believe that she's planning on bringing some of those to the budget process, but you know, an invitation to consult, I'd be happy to consult, advise, support in any way that I can, and you know, on a staff-to-staff confidential level, I can share location of students relative to the school, sort of overlaid with our walk limits or a radius to school. So I have lots of information that I could share in a more confidential way that might help inform those processes, and I'd be happy to do so, and would welcome the opportunity.
Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll go back to staff and see how much of that is actually showing up. I mean, we haven't seen those business cases yet this year. They'll be coming forward in the next month or two, but I know that they're either have wrapped those up or are very close to wrapping those up, like this week. So I just want to make sure that anything that we can do around that would fit inside of our budget process, we actually will do. Okay, thanks.
And just to clarify, that we is the District of
Yes.
Sechelt in this case. All right.
Sorry, yes,
just-
that's the District of Sechelt, sorry.
Right. We are also going into budget process at the SCRD, and your feedback would be appreciated. Andreas.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to, I guess, to me, there's a two-pronged approach here. One is hard infrastructure in order to make biking safer and more accessible. But the second thing is the bike skills that neither the parents grew up with, nor the kids have at this point in time. And, you know, I grew up in Germany, and there, as part of the elementary education system, was a bike course that every kid had to go through. And that creates a whole different attitude towards active transportation and biking. And I think that's ultimately, we need to approach it from both angles. And so I think to some extent, local governments do have a role to play in that, but I think it needs to be somewhat of a wider approach than just on a local government to local government basis. This needs to, I think that should be something that the BC government should start implementing as part of the curriculum. But, and I've been trying to get the ear of several trustees at this point, but so far I haven't heard much back. But I think that's a big part of it, and hopefully we can figure out our stuff to create some of this infrastructure. But yeah, the soft skills is what's really lacking here, and I think both are needed.
Nick?
Just in response, I think I would agree that, you know, some of those soft skills, bike safety training, you know, safety road awareness training beyond just bicycling would be great to have. I think there is, no matter how many trustees you've been in the ear of, there's limited ability to influence curriculum and what happens in the classroom. But certainly there are other avenues to have and see bike safety training. As I mentioned, the city of Surrey is a great example, and their active travel support. I think also Michael Braun may be able to speak to some of the additional programs that are being offered by Modi. And you know, I think, for example, that hub cycling, I think, is funded through a Modi active travel grant. Without putting Michael too much on the spot, you know, so there are programs and there are funds out there to also address beyond the infrastructure some of those the softer skills. But you know, typically they require a fleet of bikes, for example, and trainers, and it doesn't necessarily make sense for the school district to have a fleet of bikes. There are other service providers that offer those types of things, and we find that our schools tend to opt in where it's available.
Thank you. Alan?
Sorry, I'll let Michael answer that question first, and I'll come up next.
Yeah, I would probably not get it correct if I tried to list the programs. Kate Burney is with our, what group is she with? She's one of our managers for our active transportation programs based out of in Victoria, and she's been involved with this working group we have with the school district and Vancouver Coastal Health, and has been passing on she's been passing that information on. So certainly we can potentially draw on Kate to provide some information about what programs are available.
Thank you. Okay, over to Alan.
So I just wanted to call out that the school district has been working to build up safe routes to school, which is sort of a formalized program under Modi around, you know, a committee at the school level and a map that lays out what the best way to get to the school is, and there's a process around how that map is built up. And one of the reasons I think it's important is because in the rural areas, at least, Modi is in charge of where crossings are. So I think cycling is important, but pedestrian issues are also important. There's quite a few places where we wouldn't be comfortable letting children cross with the infrastructure the way it is now. And the Modi Safe Routes to School program allows for crossings to go in where the warrant system wouldn't necessarily allow it. So Modi puts in crossings at places where the number of people at that intersection meets a threshold. The number of cars meets a threshold. But with the Safe Routes to School program, you can bypass those requirements because we, you know, as a group, we've decided it's important that kids can safely get to school. So I think that's one place that we should continue to support the school district to get those safe routes to school programs in place and maps in place so we can see where those are.
Okay. Good point. I'm just going to stop in again and mention some of the challenges in dealing with the rural areas. You mentioned active transportation in subdivisions, and of course, subdivision approvals are done by MODI. And I've known several directors try to get MODI to pay attention to active transportation routes, but frankly, they're not very interested. And then ICBC also has some programs on safety that are available, but they are set up to be in partnership with municipalities, and they don't seem to have any vehicle to partner with regional districts because we are not in charge of transportation. So around we go and around we go. Okay, any further questions, comments, thoughts? Nick?
Sorry, just to add, I was speaking to the wrong slide earlier, with apologies from the day, that there are the specific considerations that we would hope that the SDRD TAC considers are considering looking at federal gas tax funding that's available. Obviously, there are BC active transportation infrastructure grants. There's a cost share, but a maximum funding of $500,000. And the federal active transportation fund, which also has a cost share of 60%, but could offset or allay some of the costs of those infrastructure improvements. And to respond to what you said earlier, I'd be more than happy to sit down with the relevant or the appropriate person on your team and provide whatever data I could to help prioritize where those dollars are best spent. So open invitation to any of your staff. Yeah.
Thank you. And maybe,
thanks again.
Maybe we should look at a recommendation to staff to identify someone to work with the school district.
RAF is on the committee now.
Ah, that's right. RAF is on the committee. Good point. David Kroll.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to sort of reinforce what Andreas brought up about the education process. It, you can create safe routes, but it doesn't necessarily equate that just because there's a safe route, people are going to behave in a safe manner on that route. And, I'm constantly seeing areas where there are bike lanes, cyclists riding, parallel to the bike lane on the sidewalk, pedestrians jumping out of the way hysterically. And further to that is when we look at the crime stats particularly in Gibson's, a lot of them are related to bike theft. And there seems to be a bit of an equation here that people take a bike safety course, they get a bike license, their bicycle is, serial numbers are recorded, and it suddenly becomes sort of less attractive to theft. So, it's part of the training is a key part of it, but there are other things that could spring off that training that would be of benefit to everyone.
Great. Thank you. I'm not seeing any further hands up at the moment. So in that case, perhaps we can move to the minutes of the last TAC meeting of July 15th, 2021. Are there any changes, additions, deletions, or can I see a motion to approve the minutes? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Awesome. All right, any business arising from minutes or unfinished business? We're moving right along. All right. Next up is the Select Committee Review report. We don't have a staff introduction here, so I suppose I'll throw myself into the breach since Mark did that earlier for the Policing Committee. Basically, the SCRD is reviewing several committees that we have that are longstanding committees, but the difficulty with them is that while they were set up to address issues that are of wide concern on the coast, and I can't think of many with more concern than transportation, the SCRD has really no ability to action anything coming out of the committee, because we are not in charge of transportation, except for the transit service. Modi is in charge of transportation. So it's been felt that the committee has been spinning its wheels. We come together, we complain about the ferry service, sorry BC Ferries, and we mention all the potholes, sorry Joey, but we don't actually, it's hard to see what we're accomplishing here. There was, of course, an integrated transportation plan that was drawn up in 2011, but it hasn't been actioned because nobody who can action it really was, committed to do so. And at this point, it's a bit stale. And so the question is, what is this committee doing? And if it's not doing anything useful, is there some of the function of this committee that we can move into our new Community Services Committee, which will be starting this month? Or is there another coast-wide organization that would be better positioned to host a transportation advocacy group? So we're throwing it open for discussion at this point to see how the participants, long-standing participants in this committee, feel about how we can best move forward and make the best use of everybody's time. Do I see any hands? Don't all jump up at once.
Okay.
Robert Edwards, I saw you wave.
So just get the dogs out of the room, sorry.
Excellent. Okay, Alan, you're up.
All right. So we submitted a letter to the Corporate Administrative Services and covered some of the points that I'll make right now. So I'll try and be brief, but I guess before I start, one thing that was never quite clear to me was exactly what the mandate of the TAC was. And I guess depending on how you see it, the TAC was either doing a great job or not such a great job. And it does a good job of getting a bunch of people together and discussing issues. It's not very good at processing them, mostly because the people that we can send these issues to don't really have jurisdiction over them. But so I'm not sure what format this is going to end up in, but we see delegations to standing committees as being pretty different than the roundtable format that TAC supported networking in. And like you said, transportation is really jurisdictionally challenging on the coast, but TAC provided that informal, regular public forum for addressing issues with staff and elected officials for a range of entities. And we totally understand the SCRD is not responsible or for the delivery or coordination of transportation infrastructure. But I also think the SCRD is uniquely positioned to be able to facilitate the dialogue on this. I'm not sure what other group could do that. So I know you guys are the experts on the process side, but we like the idea of a community service committee delegations, but we assume delegations are a bit clunky for a form of informal discussion. And so we think it would be good to potentially formalize the reporting of active transport or transportation in general, infrastructure improvements that are happening on the Sunshine Coast, maybe through the Community Services quarterly report. I don't know if that's something that could be rolled into that. And then we also think that something like a semi-annual meeting, like an integrated transportation planning meeting that was open to public, elected officials and staff, where we could talk about what the upcoming capital projects are. See Schultz doing a transportation plan, bring that to the table, what lessons could be learned in other jurisdictions. The Sun Coaster is another thing, multi-jurisdictional, that could benefit from that. So that's my long-winded set of thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Diana?
I support a lot of things that Alan has said, in that it's not under the authority of the SCRD, but there really isn't another entity that can fill it as well. And from the ferry advisory perspective, ferries impact everybody on the coast. We do have community members, but we don't have and we do have a representative of each of the local governments within the committee, but we don't really have a formal process to be able to bring information and concerns forward. And so I think if the Transportation Committee didn't exist, I'm sure members can go to the BC Ferries website if it's working. It's not today. But you can go to the website and take a look at the traffic stats, and I'm sure you'll be, thoroughly excited about it all. But we hear from the Ferry Advisory Committee, we hear a lot of information, a lot of concerns from the community about issues that are happening, and we need some place to be able to bring that forward and to work together, because we are trying to be the voice of the community, but we need those entities to be there for our support, I think.
So I'm just going to ask a question here, because I think I'm hearing that we need an information clearinghouse. There, as far as I know, there is no other committee where all of these particular players come to the same table. So does that need to be more formalized or more informalized? So what is the direction that we should go here? Any thoughts? Wave, jump up and down. Mark?
Thanks, Chair. Diane, I was wondering about the stats. So the creation of the stats, are they a byproduct of the Ferry Advisory Committee, or that's a separate process of people gathering those stats?
Those stats are originally on the BC Ferries website. I always try to get the latest ones so that I can show for our route. You can go on BC Ferries website and you can hunt through. There's quite a long route to get to the traffic stats, and it shows it for every route. So what I try to do is take those exact stats and bring them to this committee with relevant, so they are relevant to the Sunshine Coast. So that would be Route 3 and comparing it to the system. It's something that I've just been doing. Whether it is of any use to anybody, I'd like to know. But I think it's good to be able to see how we are growing. And the latest stats are comparing it back to 2019, because it seemed fairly irrelevant to be comparing it to 2020 when we're going through COVID. And so that's what I've been doing. But that's what I've been doing personally. But I'm taking those stats from the BC Ferries website.
Okay. Sue? Oh, sorry. It was your real hand. I was looking for your fake hand.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, for us, for the school district, I think that we have, this committee has been very beneficial. And I think of the PAC groups that have had the opportunity to find a voice, and I think that we've had great communications with this committee. Obviously, really felt great support, and the results have been great. So for us, I think it has really been a great experience and a great venue for us to come together, and we've been heard, and we've been able to hear everyone else, and yeah, it's been very good for us. So I hate to see it dissolve or change too much. I think that we have all managed to work very cooperatively together on our issues and concerns, and yeah, it's been great for us. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Diane, is your hand still up or? Yeah, okay.
You're muted.
Working.
Oh, there, is that now working? I'm having troubles with my technology today. It keeps losing me. I support what Sue has said because I have seen value in it, and I think the voices that we hear at this table do have value. So I guess my question is, what are the issues? One of them that I read within the report is the time lapse between what we do and when it sort of hits the light of day. And that we no longer, I guess the second one is that we no longer meet the mandate of why this was originally set up. Is that what the issue is? And is there ways of resolving it, but that would still continue to allow the voices around this table to have voice and in a formal way?
Fair enough. This is Darnelda.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Diana, but when you're saying in a formal way, I think what we're indicating is that while this is an official committee of the regional district at this point, we have no authority to action any of the items that come forward. So in an official way to who? Right? Who should be taking action on that? Not us, because we can't. So how do we restructure this so that whoever, like however it happens, action moves forward?
I would agree. It might be that the terms of reference need to change. Another thing we do with regional district committees generally, we do meet during the day. If this was a less formal committee wanting more community input, the evening would be good, but then that would be difficult for staff from like Modi and BC Ferries. Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. I'm interested in the networking aspect of it and the feelings that the delegation is not sufficient, like at a standing committee, is not sufficient to facilitate that networking and those connections between various community groups. So the idea of it being sort of, I'm going to call it the enhanced delegation, where there's more time quarterly to do this, is that something that members could see a shift, a place to put this sort of networking?
Anyone? The need for coordinated transportation planning on the coast is obvious. It's not in anybody's mandate, and that's a problem. And there's been, a couple of attempts over the years to break that logjam, but we have not gotten anywhere. So, David.
Thank you, Chair. With the exception of public transit, the key player at this table is Modi. And, the municipalities, to a lesser extent, it's really, critically important with the regions or the rural areas and where Modi roads intersect with municipalities. So, I think what we're doing is looking for a vehicle of how do we get the concerns of the school board and TRAC and other groups to Modi in a method that can be actioned? Because, you know, as has been mentioned, you know, throughout this conversation, the regional district really doesn't have the power to action the concerns that are being brought to us. So as you said in your opening statement, Donna, we're spinning our wheels. And that's a frustration, I think, to everyone sitting on the committee. We talk, but nothing happens. And so how do we have a voice that is more engaging and has more impact with Modi? And I would also almost ask Joey if he can shed any light on this.
Maybe I'll jump in there and try to speak on behalf of Modi. Sorry, I think I'm going to defer any Modi comments on this issue at this time. I wasn't prepared to speak on this issue at all. I don't think it's fair for me to speak to that right now. So happy to talk about it at some point, but I'm not prepared to make any comments about Modi's role in this committee at this time.
I do have a question for you, though, and that is, are you aware of any models elsewhere in the province for integrated transportation planning where nobody has responsibility for it?
No. But I've not asked any of my colleagues if there's anything like that.
Fair enough. Thank you. Andreas.
Yeah, I just have a question in regards to active transportation and moving some of those widened shoulders and things like that forward. We've done it in the past. Then we needed an MOU. Now we have an MOU. So what's standing in the way of us not moving forward on this? I don't think I still don't have clarity on this, and I'm wondering. I don't know if anybody here has. Well, there's a few staff members who have history, and Ian might have some experience in regards to that. But yeah, I'm just wondering, who organized it in the past, and can we go back to that now that we have an MOU?
Anyone? Oh, Darnell did. By all means.
I can give you a little history about what happened. I mean, so gas tax funds were being used by municipalities, regional districts for building paths, bike paths and things on the sides of highways. And somebody actually went back and checked the requirements of the gas tax agreement that we all signed. And it said we actually had to be the owners of the land on which we were doing the work. But that's it. That's it. So that stopped it.
Right, but who did the planning? Because that's where we need to go back to now. Like, who did the planning?
Who did the
Sorry, my
planning?
question is essentially, okay, so now we have an MOU. We can basically go back to
Yes.
where we were.
Okay.
So who's going to start the planning, and who's going to do it, and who's going to take the ball and run with it? That's
Okay.
my question.
So that when we did it, it was a joint planning exercise with Ministry of Transportation and our staff, but our staff took the lead because it was our funding. They needed to ensure that it worked inside of their infrastructure, right? And had some input into standards, et cetera, right? Because in the end, they're maintaining it along with us, but it was a joint planning process that happened.
Yes, we have capacity issues, and I'm sure that Modi has capacity issues too. I don't know if there is any way that we could get some additional grant funding that would address the capacity issues to do the planning work that is needed in order to spend the gas tax funds that we have to put the active transportation in place. But that is one of those thorny staff questions that I'm not going to bushwhack them with. unless they have an idea. Oh, jump right in, Shelley.
Yes, good afternoon. So I'll preface this by saying month number 4. And I'm really fascinated by the conversation. This is very good for me. This is my first Transportation Advisory Committee meeting. So it's been excellent to sort of meet everybody via Zoom and hear the conversation, because these are certainly things that have been talked about. Ian has, or General Manager Hall has given me information, and I know that Raf and James are involved in committee, and lots of thinking about how we connect for non-vehicular transportation, whether that be walking, biking, cycling, whatever that looks like, and all the different players involved. And so I note that I actually have a meeting coming up. It's not for another month, but with members of the school district, Nicholas, and that's on my agenda. I have an email from TRAC that I haven't answered yet, and I have some thinking that you will see reflected in our service planning priorities in 2022 toward the end. Unfortunately, it's just priorities, right? Competing priorities, but some thinking about how we could get the players together, how we could facilitate that thinking, that creation of that. And I know it's not necessarily a very popular term, but I'm going to say it, the creation of that master plan that brings all these little pieces together, and all the conversations and work, good work that the community's done and different people through different initiatives to identify priorities and to identify that implementation plan. So you will see that reflected in a priority in our 2022 planning without a dollar value attached to it, in the hopes that toward the end of 2022 we might consider some grant funding and probably bring a separate report forward. Unfortunately, it's probably much later than lots of people would like, but we are trying to balance that with a number of other different things. But absolutely in our thinking, and just my ability to get out there and to meet with people and to start those conversations hasn't necessarily occurred yet. But this has been a great opportunity to start, and now people know what I look like too, so I have no doubt there'll be more conversations to come. So I look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, inconclusive though this is, I think we should wrap this up for right now. People can always feel free to jump up and down. But we have 2 more items on the agenda today. We have, first off, the BC Ferries Route 3 traffic statistics. How are we doing post-COVID, Diana?
I got it going this time. All right. So I provided some information about our meeting that we had in August, which is with all of the ferry advisory chairs from the 13 committees that exist on the coast through the Coastal Ferry Services. And what's really interesting is that we all seem to be a lot of times facing the same challenges. So that's why I presented that. The statistics, I was only able to do July and August from our last meeting because the traffic stats have not been posted yet for September. I checked yesterday. They weren't on, but today the website is down and has been all day. As you can see, the traffic on Route 3 is improving faster than it is on the entire system, and particularly vehicles over passengers. And that, I think, is because of people wanting to avoid going upstairs or walking on and being with other people. So those numbers are improving more significantly. I think we'll find the September stats higher again because the traffic doesn't seem to have died down, and we're having a lot of problems with late ferries and overload. So I would suspect that those numbers will continue to increase, and our issues will continue to surface of what we're facing with ferry traffic. So if anybody has any question, then I'll just remind you that these stats are comparing back to 2019 now because of 2020 COVID. And so 2019 was a peak year for ferry service. And so our numbers are pretty high considering that we are still going through COVID. So if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Diana. I see Robert has his hand up.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback that by saying I've seen the statistics for September. I think it was up 15% from 19, which was, as Diane mentioned, a bumper year. So that's quite significant. October, I have no numbers in front of me. I'm at home, but it's been pretty crazy as well, particularly with commercial and overnights. Lots of people hunting, camping, that kind of stuff. So it's been pretty hectic down there. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. On the way here this morning, I listened to the CKAY ferry traffic report. That was pretty funny. It was like, okay, let's see if the website's up. Nope. Too bad. Anyway.
Yeah, it was my first day back from 5 days off, and all the apps and networks were down this morning. So it wasn't the best start to being back on shift, but it got a little better as the day progressed.
Good. Great to hear it. All right, I'm not seeing any questions on BC Ferries. So let's move on to Alan with the Active Transportation Report Card, which is very handsome, I must say.
Oh, thank you. So I got one thing maybe I can throw on to the end of the meeting is it'd be nice to get a bit of clarity about what the future of TAC is. Unless you're really good at reading minutes, it's a bit unclear to me at this point what's going to happen. So that would be great to get some clarity. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is Bike Sense pamphlet. So we're a member of the BC Cycling Coalition, which is a provincial level advocacy group, and we contributed in a small way to their recent edition of Bike Sense publication. So it's a little small pamphlet, and it's a how-to guide on cycling in BC. It contains information on what to wear, how to be safe on a bike, skills that you need, how to use transit with a bike, the laws it relates to. And so we have way more pamphlets than we could possibly ever use. So we're hoping that we can give them to you, and you guys can also distribute some of them. So we're hoping that it's also available online, and you can see that in the agenda. So if any groups could use them and think that they could distribute them for us in their lobbies or wherever, please reach out to us. That'd be great. The next thing is we've released our first ever active transportation report card. It's a one-page infographic that you can see in the agenda there. And its intent is to provide some baseline data for active transportation metrics. And there are so many great things happening in active transportation on the Sunshine Coast right now. Both the town of Gibsons and district of Sechelt have received substantial grants for AT improvements. Sechelt is going through a transportation plan process. Modi installed its first ever separated bike lane on North Road there. SD46, as was presented to us earlier, is doing all sorts of things to promote active travel. So it's our goal to release this report every 1 or 2 years and measure and celebrate the progress we're making towards active transportation options. So you can find it on our website at the link there. And then just before I let you hop off, it was Active Transportation Week, September 25th to the 10th. And we hosted a whole bunch of events. Some were well attended, some suffered from the rain. And the school district also hosted a series of events that we saw some social media from that looked super fun. Anyway, big thank you to the participants and sponsors. And that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Great, and thank you to TRAC for organizing these events, such as the wrap-up party, which I went to, even though I didn't do a lot of active transit due to the rain, the aforementioned rain. Director Hiltz, Mark.
Thanks, Donna. Yeah, Alan, when you say you have a lot of pamphlets, how many is a lot?
Like 500.
500. So is the regional district foyer a place to be able to do this, or there's other stuff like 911? Is that possible, or? Not sure.
Thank you. Just to speak to that, at this point in time, due to COVID, we've actually removed any of our distribution products. So, and I don't believe that we've gone back to having things available at this point. That's not to say that as hopefully restrictions are removed and public health orders change, we might be able to do that. But so we couldn't distribute them. They just sort of go into storage with us for the time being, but that's not, again, that might change in the future. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Darnelda.
I think you should reach out to the libraries. I know our library has shelving in the lobby where they have all kinds of brochures and pamphlets and things from all kinds of different organizations. Probably Gibson's does as well. And a lot of people go through there. So that would be a good place to put some of them.
That would be great. On the question of where to go, the devil is making me say perhaps we should look for some suggestions from staff on what direction we might go. There are a lot of there's a lot of pieces in the air right now. We are all reeling from the effects of COVID, which has disrupted all the things that we had ideas where we might be in 2021, 2 years ago, and we're not there. We're somewhere quite different. And we don't yet know what direction we're going to be going in. The transit future planning process is underway right now. And also, local governments are gearing up step by step towards a regional growth strategy. And certainly transportation has got to be a key piece of that regional growth strategy. So I'm wondering even if at some point there might be some sort of select committee on transportation or some other group to handle that portion of the regional growth strategy. I also wanted to express appreciation to Modi because we have been having monthly or quarterly rural directors and Modi meetings. And personally, I've found that very helpful. So it's taken a little bit of the heat off the rural directors. Not that much. Lots of complaints still, don't worry. But it has been helpful. And also I appreciated that we had the first, to my knowledge, ever sort of fringe area and Gibson's and Modi meeting to discuss some of the problems with, roads that cross boundaries, jurisdictional boundaries. So my feeling at the moment is that there's so many unknowns out there that I'm a little reluctant to jump in and say, I think we should do this thing. But I'm open to anybody's further thoughts on it. Wow. Okay. It is 4:30. Folks are looking a little tired. I'm going to suggest that we do a real fast roundtable because that, of course, is one of the fun things about being in the Transportation Committee. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you, Darnelda, well, I was going to take you in the order that Zoom suggested, but okay, Darnelda, go for it.
I guess what I'm not clear about, and this is kind of what Alan was alluding to, is do we even have another meeting of this committee? Or are we done? Is this our last meeting? Or are we moving forward with this committee?
Okay.
My assumption is it's gone. After this meeting, we do not have any other meetings of this committee. And it has to be morphed into something else for it to continue to happen. But I'm not sure. That's what I'm looking for clarity on.
And personally, I'll just say that I was thinking of parking it because you park a Transportation Committee, sorry. Shelley?
Thank you. I think the reality is you've created you've passed a resolution that has dissolved the committee as it currently stands. I would like to be able to take this away and have further conversation, but my thought was as community services general manager, I should be able to have the opportunity to facilitate or host opportunities for community groups to come together and talk about issues or items. There wouldn't be any actioning that comes out of it. It's no different. But if the idea is to network and communicate and to talk, certainly I can facilitate that. And I think that's what we were trying to do with the whole idea around community services and what role could we play. And I see it as a facilitation. It wouldn't be a formal committee. It wouldn't have any jurisdiction or authority to do anything, but certainly the forum to meet and discuss can be, I can host that type of opportunity. So I offer that as a perhaps thinking while we work through our new committee structure, perhaps, and we maybe try to flesh out whether that's going to be enough, whether that would suffice the members and the groups that gather and want to surface these items.
Thank you. And I had something else I was going to say. Sorry, it's getting late. I just wanted to mention that one of the board's strategic priorities is advocacy. And part of this is something which I'm becoming very interested in, which is the update of legislation around regional districts and the relationship between regional districts and the province. Because right now, nobody is tasked with rural road planning, and that's a big problem. And we need to figure out who's going to do it and under what circumstances and where the funding's going to come from. And it's got to happen because our road network is deteriorating. We've been on a break-fix plan for about 40 years now. And we've been making decisions about transportation piecemeal without having any goal of what we're doing. So, David.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wondering, in the format that General Manager Gagnon suggested, would Modi be willing to attend in that format?
Short answer, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Can we round table real fast? I'm gonna take. I think we're okay. All right. I'm taking you in the order you're in on my Zoom feed. So, Alan, you're up first. Anything further?
Yeah, I guess a couple things. I think the meeting style format to gather a group like this on some semi-regular basis would be good. I guess the opportunity to appear as delegation is available to anybody anytime. It seems like maybe formalizing when that is. I had sort of understood that it was maybe quarterly at the community service meetings is what the group was leaning to at some point. That seems like if there are going to be delegations, maybe they should be coming in transportation flavor together. The other thing that I wonder about is there definitely is a visibility problem around just on the Sunshine Coast with all these jurisdictions about what's happening with active transportation planning and changes. And we were sort of wondering if it's possible that the community services quarterly report contain some line item for what's happening in transportation planning. That's me.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to kick that over to Shelley. Can we have a line item or something about active transportation?
Well, usually I'm not at a loss for words, but I just am thinking about the quarterly report, and my understanding of the intent of the quarterly report is really an internal communication document that is providing updates on the work plans of staff. So I'm not entirely sure that's the right avenue, but trying to think about, maybe that's a report that can come through Community Services Committee. Maybe it's, maybe our first conversation can contemplate the different methodologies of how best to get this. Like you said, delegations are welcome at any committee, anytime. We could certainly make available the opportunity for a transportation consortium to come together quarterly. You could present reports to community services that could become part of the minutes and then forwarded to the board that way. But I'm not sure that the community services quarterly report is the right venue for that.
Right. But a report to put on an agenda as an item of communications would work fine. Okay, next up, Robert, anything more on BC Ferries?
No, nothing at this time, other than apologizing for not being too active on the committee the last 6 months. We've been a little short-handed, but hopefully there's some kind of iteration of this meeting going forward, and I'd be happy to participate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Diana, anything further?
I have a question for Modi. I'm just wondering when they are if they're going to finish the road, all the work on the road widening on 101, because the paving has been done, but none of the fog lines have been put in. And with the weather changing and it getting darker a lot earlier, it's quite dangerous going along 101 with no street lighting and no fog line.
Yeah, so line painting has been a challenge this year. There is a massive shortage, not just for us, but pretty much everywhere in North America for road paint. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer. But there was it's manufactured in Texas, and when they had their storms last winter, it affected production so much that there is a shortage of line paint right now. So yeah.
One more piece of COVID.
Yeah. Plus, shipping is hard.
Yeah, just the road is quite dangerous in the dark without that fog line.
100% agree.
Great,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, and who saw that coming? James, anything on transit?
Thank you, Chair. At this moment, no. If somebody has a question for me about transit, I can answer that, but nothing for me to share at this time.
Thank you. If anyone's interested, we got the transit quarterly statistics in this morning's agenda, this morning's planning agenda. Joey, you must have had an adventurous weekend last weekend.
It's been a busy week catching up after something like 350 millimeters of rain in the Port Mellon area, but no, nothing really to add from me at this time. Like we've been talking about, if there's future meetings, I'm happy to be involved in any transportation advisory meetings that might come from this or become real in the future, but nothing from me at this time.
Thank you very much. Michael, anything from the higher echelons of Modi?
No, I'll just echo what Joey said. It was a challenging weekend. We've had a few big rain events already, and it's not even the end of October. So I will give a shout out to Cap Highways, who aren't here, but their crews were out in full force all weekend. We had a few issues that I thought they managed really well, keeping the roads open, in particular at the bottom of the bypass, where we had some issues, and also getting a culvert replaced on an emergency basis on Reed Road. So there is that. So great job for them. And we have shifted into our winter season. I know I guess winter here is just wet, but we're into winter now. So they're gearing up, prepping for winter.
Thank you very much. Nick, anything further from SD46? Or Sue?
Yeah, just a couple of things, and I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the long arm, the extended stop arm, because we've brought that to the Transportation Committee before. And so an extended stop arm was installed on bus 269, and data will be collected to determine the effectiveness of the device in preventing illegal pass-bys. So we'll see how I haven't heard anything about it yet, but it'll be interesting to know if it was helpful in deterring people from passing through the flashing red lights and the stop signs. And again, the second thing was I was at the Linedale PAC meeting last night, and this is just from the parents questioning the line painting, which Michael spoke to. And this is on the stretch of road that was paved about 6+ months ago in Linedale. And there was initially a sign up there that said, you know, be careful, line's not painted, but then the sign disappeared and the lines still never got painted. So you're telling us partially why that is. And so that's the Port Mellon Highway between Wharf and Forbes, and then onward to YMCA, which just has the yellow little squares up the road and so. And so some of the kids and teachers who are bicycling have, mentioned that they have some concerns with that. So I promised that I would bring that to the table, and now I have. So thank you very much.
We'll look to see if there's anything else we can do while we wait for paint.
Good. Thank you very much. Alton.
Thank you. I was actually going to raise the fog lines through Selma Park where the lighting is good, but they did do shoulder widening and what have you. But having heard about the great paint shortage, I don't really have anything else to comment on at this time that I can think of.
Thank you. Andreas.
The only thing I want to bring up is our old trouble spot at 2330 Lower Road. I think that's the address. Where we now have a ford going. You have to ford across Lower Road in order to get to the other side. So it's a blocked culvert. And is that the?
We're looking to do something about that, Andreas. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's the owner's responsibility or are you guys going to do it? It's tricky because we can only implore an owner to upsize their culvert for so long. So we're looking to try to get that culvert replaced and upsized because it's desperately needed there for sure. Yeah, I saw the pictures over the weekend. It's a bit shocking. Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to point fingers or anything. It's just a...
Oh no, it's fine. Yeah, that's definitely a problem area.
Thank you. Darnelda.
Microphone there. Okay. Couple of things coming up. The Wharf Avenue work will be starting, we're understanding, within the next few weeks. So there's going to be sidewalk put in along the highway from the Royal LePage and Batch 44 building on the corner to the Bank of Montreal at the other end of the street. So just expect to have some delays going through there. You might want to detour around it, go straight up Dolphin or something. But that's going to be happening, starting very soon from what I understand. Trail Avenue is pretty much done. There's a little bit of work to be done by the senior center on the, a little bit of paving on the both sides, yeah. But it's more the walking stuff. The road itself is done. What else around transportation? I think that's pretty much it at this point. Thanks.
Thank you. David.
Thank you, Chair. I sort of just thank everyone for their contribution to this committee, and I'd like to certainly, in the new year, particularly when Gibson's is probably being faced with our own policing, is working with TRAC and some of the other groups to address the thing that Andreas brought up about just cyclist training. And if Alan has some extra pamphlets and booklets, we do have a rack at the front doors of the town hall in Gibson, so I'm sure that staff would be more than happy to put some out. It really is important because there's sort of almost a love-hate that's going on between cyclists and motorists, and I'd really like to see a happier situation for everyone. And I just cringe sometimes when I see some of the things that happen and think, someone survived that one, but how lucky are they going to continue to be if they continue behaving? So education's really important, and I would really like, once we get into our own situation, working with the school board and TRAC and see if we can get something happening.
Thank you very much. Len?
Thank you, Chair. I really would like to see something like a quarterly TAC facilitated by Community Services. I hope it happens, because I really do enjoy these meetings, and I learn a lot. And I think it's a good way of learning about what everybody else is doing. So I'm hopeful. Great suggestion. The seasonal calls to me are happening. Potholes, flooded roads, road damage, and I keep directing everybody to Capilano. And now I'm expecting snow removal next, because we know how that all happens. The SCRD is responsible for all that stuff. So I decided to be proactive, and I did a spiel blurb, so you guys will see it coming. Try to get me out of the loop so things get reported properly and on time. This was my theory. So anyways, thank you, everybody. It was a great meeting.
Thank you. Mark?
It's all about the deluge, I would say. All the usual suspects in Area F. That there's one that's kind of increasing, and I guess I'm wondering about how Moti responds to water that's coming from, in this place, it's up on Gilmore Road. It's near your pit, and it travels about 2 kilometers down Gilmore Cemetery, North Road, deposits at the Reed Road intersection, and then on into Gibson's Creek. And Moti inherits this water from a site, a gravel pit site, and so does Moti try to deal with the upstream people, or do you just kind of deal with the downstream results? So we're starting to think about it from a watershed point of view in some ways, and stuff starts at the top and it comes down. So that's the one question: how Moti responds to non-road water coming into their roadways. And then just a quick comment on, or question on the Reed Road culvert. Which culvert was replaced? Where was the location of that? Thanks.
Well, I don't have the exact location. Yeah, I didn't go by it when I was there the other day. Joey, do you know where it was exactly?
Yeah, it's right between Henry and Payne Road, about maybe 300 meters in from Henry.
Okay.
On the cave section?
Yeah, and your first question, Mark, I guess it really depends how we deal with upland owners. In the scale of the issue or the scope of the issue. Sometimes it's quickest and easiest to try to manage the water as best we can. But yeah, if upland owners, and if what I'm hearing, there's concerns about the water runoff coming from industrial activity, and concerned about pollutants, then yeah, we don't do the environmental testing or anything like that. So it's maybe a Ministry of Environment issue. I'm not really sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we're more concerned about capacity of water coming into our ditches and stuff like that.
Yes, the ever-increasing amount of water. Flooding. The penultimate person on my list here is Shelley. Do you have anything further? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else, or do I get the last word? I like having the last word. Yeah, flooding was Area E on the weekend. No surprise there. And darn, I am getting tired. I've forgotten. I was going to editorialize. You're missing the opportunity to hear me rant about something. Oh well, it's been a trip. And yes, we need to come forward in another venue soon. So I hope to see you all, possibly in person someday. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. Do I see a motion to adjourn? Moved, seconded. All in favor? Yay. But we can't chat over coffee. We can only sort of wave on Zoom.